So enjoy, and I'll turn it over to you. Thank you, Elena.
Okay, thank you, Heather. And just like you said, Women's International Network stands for supporting and sustaining its members. And I think that with tonight's guest, it's absolutely answering to a general feeling of sadness because the board is so happy to present you a specialist who will lecture about adversities and resilience, who will explain us how to empower ourselves. We can start this new year afresh with a positive outlook on the future again. He is the Florence-based Australian-Italian psychologist, Dr. Piero Stanley Pirro. He studied at the University of Turin, where he graduated summa cum laude, and furthermore at the University of Pisa and the UK College of Hypnosis and Hypnotherapy. He is a member of the British Psychological Society and a mindful-based intervention trainer and cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist. He writes articles and books. Piero offers his services working with these single individual, couples, and groups. He does resilience courses for the police, civil defense, and for voluntaries in psychiatric institutions. There, he helps the forgotten families who have to live with daily challenges of psychiatric illness, and he teaches how to cope with maybe a daughter or a father with schizophrenia or bipolarism. So he shows people the way, not only with psychotherapy, but also through hypnosis. And not everybody knows that hypnosis is using your imagination in a special way to think along with or believing as if, for example, with smoking cessation, pain relief, and fear control. And he tackles many other problems that can sabotage one's professional and private life. So Piero is absolutely passionate about his job, and you will acknowledge that tonight during the lecture and later visiting his website, www.drpieropsicologo.it. Check it out. Finally, after your questions, we'll have a raffle quiz, and then Piero gently offered us a group hypno-meditation session in which everybody can choose to participate. So let us tonight be led, watching images, listening to the metaphors in order to explore a part of the human mind and its mechanisms. Let's listen carefully to Piero Stanley Pirro. To you, Piero.
Hello. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. When you were talking about me, I was thinking, wow, I want to meet this guy. Who's this guy? Thank you very much for inviting me. And I'm overjoyed and honored to be here. And I was thinking as I was participating to your introduction and to all the things you do, and I said, why on earth isn't there a network for men? I want to be part of something like that, you know. And so what can I do? So shall we begin? I will share my screen right now, so let me know if you can see it. Let's see. There it is. You can see it right now? Yes, I suppose you can. Yes. Oh, okay. I'm trying to take out. Okay, good. So you can see it and you can hear me right. Good. Okay. So let's talk about resilience, adversity, and resilience. For starters, we'll start talking about what resilience is. Now, resilience is a very complex, it's something that is pretty known, and we use it in everyday language to denote many things, but is actually a pretty complex construct in psychology. And one single definition will not be able to convey the whole rich meaning that resilience has in our own lives. To help me then explain to you what resilience is, I'll have to draw upon many different definitions that will, in a way, highlight different aspects of what resilience is, but missing also other parts that will be highlighted by other definitions. So let's start from the physics of materials. You may know that resilience, as well as another word such as stress, was borrowed by the physics of materials. Basically, resilience is the ability of a material which has been applied energy upon, an energy that has compressed it, as in this case, or pulled it, in order to get back to its original shape. The resilience is the quantity of time a material will get back to its original shape once it has, in a way, adapted or warped, because elastically adapted to an energy that was applied to it, to a force, to a stress that was applied to it. Interestingly enough, every material has its own elastic breaking point. So after, if you surpass this breaking point, the material will no longer be able to get back to its own shape. And in the same way, we could say that in our lives, we might have been compressed by different instances, different requests, our demands, our environments demand and put upon our shoulders, and so we feel overwhelmed and compressed, or we may be torn, pulled in many different exclusive directions, and we don't know, we are in a dilemma and we don't know what to choose. So this is one way of seeing it. Another way in psychology is there are at least 5 definitions, and all of these are interesting per se. The first 3, you can see that there's resilience is overcoming, then there's adaptation, adapting, and then bouncing back. Now, overcoming implies a situation in which we are able to, in a way, pull through, dig ourselves through adversity, to soldier on adversity, overcome. It means to be able to confront with our adversity. While adapting implies a different picture, implies that we are not able to confront with adversity, because adaptation means we need to dodge whatever it's coming at us. Let's say a bullet. We cannot simply overcome a bullet that is coming at us. We need to dodge it and find opportunity where it presents itself. And finally, the bouncing back implies that we were not able to overcome, we were not able to adapt, we had the full force of the bullet strike our body, and we actually fell. And resilience in that case is to be able to nonetheless to get back into our feet. So there are 3 different ways of seeing resilience, and also resilience can be seen as a word for mental health. In a way, we can say that mental health issues are not being able to adapt to the environmental conditions that are applied upon us. And therefore, we could say that being mentally unhealthy is not being able, there's a failure in our natural ability to bounce back and to adapt and to overcome whatever adversity comes to us. And in a way, we could say that our natural stretching point, our natural elastic stretching point has been surpassed, has been passed in that particular instance. Another final definition is from some researchers, that is resilience as ordinary magic. Now, this is a very interesting definition. Ordinary because it's something that we all have. We all have this ability to bounce back, to adapt and to overcome, and to be healthy in the face of adversity. And magic has at least threefold meaning. The first thing is that it's wondrous. We do not know how wondrous it is, how surprising it is to us to be able to find the strength and the resources to face great adversity. It is surprising to us to see other people able to withstand things that we don't think we are able to do, so to withstand. A second meaning is that it's magical. It's something that you cannot easily put your finger on. And in fact, in resilience, there's no single ability, strength, stance, mental stance, thought that you can use, thought process that you can use. It's more of a systematic set of resources that work together in order to make us get back to our feet, make us adapt to our environments. And finally, as Harry Potter would teach us all, he goes to a school of magic. And in the school of magic, you learn magic. And that means that resilience is somehow learnable. It's a skill or a set of skills or something that you can teach, possibly learn, and make it better. Now, I'm not saying anything that it has not been known by human beings for 1,000 years. The ancients knew well that human beings were able to increase their own ability to face adversity, to face true obstacles in their way. Let's talk about Seneca. He talks about life as being a boxer, a wrestler, a pancrator, rather than life as a dance. And he says, no prize fighter can go with high spirits into the strife if he has never been beaten black and blue. He uses graphic images. The only contestant who can confidently enter the lists is the man who has seen his own blood, who has felt his teeth rattle beneath his opponent's fist, who has been tripped and felt the full force of his adversary's charge, who has been downed in body but not in spirit, one who, as often as he falls, rises again with greater defiance than ever. Life has often in the past got the upper hand of you, and yet you have not surrendered, but have leaped up and stood your ground still more eagerly. For the best that is in you gains much strength by being challenged. So we can see here that the ancient knew very well that we are able to increase our elastic limit as long as it's not surpassed too much. It's not, we are not facing something too difficult for us. So when we put adversity and resilience together, we can see at least 3 outcomes. The most common outcome is one in which we face adversity, we face adversity, and eventually we get back to our previous well-being, our previous state. It may take a time, but basically this is the most common of our results. Another outcome is when we face adversity and this is too much for us, and we do not get back to the way we were before. We could say that trauma is something that neutralizes our ability to naturally get back, to bounce back to our previous state. And finally, what a science, an applied science of resilience would want to create is a training that allows us, while we face adversity, to get better, to actually thrive because of adversity. So, resilience can be defined as the ability to stay on the right path, whatever that may be, through constant dedication to one's values. And values here is not to be intended in a moralistic sense, but as what is most important to us, despite adversity, hardship, and relapses. I inspired myself. How do you increase resilience? And I inspired myself from the prayer, the Serenity Prayer, written by theologian Reinhold Niebuhr at the eve of the Second World War. And it goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Therefore, I here propose 3 paths to thread in order to increase our resilience. And these paths I will be talking about this evening are the path of doing, the path of doing nothing, and the path of knowing. Let's begin with the path of doing. The path of doing is the path of problem solving. We see an issue, something that we don't like in the present, and we compare this thing with a possible future in which this issue is not present. And we activate our muscles in order to resolve this issue. So we activate with a behavior, we react in order to make this problem go away for us and make our present better, make especially our future better. So the path of doing is a path of change. As Winston Churchill would tell us, to improve is to change, so to be perfect is to have changed often. And what is change? What I'm advocating here and what is worth distinguishing is between fast and slow change. Now, fast change is something that is, in my opinion, a myth, and it's unreliable and dangerous to obtain. How many celebrities, actors can we name that basically, because of their life choices, have gotten to rock bottom? And some of them will have, at the end of the rock bottom, when they hit true rock bottom, they will have a moment of clarity. In that moment of clarity, they will pull themselves out of rock bottom and they'll start rebuilding their lives. Some others will never bounce back from that and will simply sink. So the path of 180% type of, or 180 degrees type of change is not reliable and dangerous, in my opinion, while a more secure reliable way to change is slow change. And slow change, we can have slow change through small, manageable and sustainable achievements and improvements over the course of a long span of time. Let's say that we want to improve, and we improve 1% each day. At the end of the year, that will be a 365% improvement. So what we want to do is to be able to do something that with repetition, we're able to improve over a long course of time. Now, a general rule of change that works in psychotherapy as well as in life is that if you want to change, things are not as difficult as you may think, but may require far more repetition that you may thought. You need to repeat and repeat over and over and again, learn and relearn and hyperlearn simple things, manageable things that will become eventually automatic. They will become autonomous behavior. What I'm talking here is I'm talking about establishing new habits. And not only new habits, I'm going to talk about establishing habits, special habits. And what I'll talk at the end of this chapter is about the establishing of a practice. Now, why do I want to talk about habits? I want to talk about habits because one thing to understand is that habits are nigh living things. Even the most delicate, we can see new habits as delicate flowers, very delicate, that will die easily if we don't tend to them. And old, battle-proven, die-hard habits that are radicated within us, they are both energy-saving devices that will help us to master our own environment. And both these, if the conditions, the environmental conditions that make them possible fall short, they will eventually die. Both of course, the young flower will die first, but eventually also the great old oak of our die-hard habits will die too. So why do I tell you this? Is because in the pandemic and the measures used to contain it, our environments have changed radically over a short amount of time. This is why it is possible that our habits have been put into disarray. They have been derailed. Therefore, a first step when we are in the eye of the storm, when we are lost somehow, because habits reassure us. Habits really try to imagine the situation in which we are in another country, we know no one, we don't know where we are, we don't know where to sleep, we don't know the language, we don't know the streets, we don't know how to support ourselves. All of these things give us, habits give us a familiarity, and they take off choices from us. In a way, there are choices we made long time ago, and they reassure us, make habits, make our world a place that is familiar to us, a world that we can understand. So it is worth exploring habits and how to establish habits at the best possible way. So habits respond to the environment, and broadly speaking, habits that are easily available. As a species, we have adapted to respond to what is easily in front of our eyes. If in our house we have a lot of bottles of water, we will consistently go for the water instead of going to drink soda. If we go to a supermarket, we consistently buy the things that are in front of our eyes and ignore completely the things that are at the periphery of our eyes. Habits that stick usually are habits that are simple and effortless to do. They are habits that we have many reasons to do, so they are beneficial for us, and habits that are somewhat satisfying in the end. Now, one thing that I want to take away is that since habits are responding to our environments very much, and our environments now are virtual, we are working on our devices most of our time, and with the pandemic more so. Our social lives are spent on devices. We are now today in a virtual environment. It is of paramount importance in order to boost our best habits to control our virtual environments. One quick fix to our best practices could be to simply make the applications that are less important for us difficult to find or not easily accessible, hard to access or not visible, and to make the most important and useful applications for us visible and easily accessed. Another way to implement and to start building new habits that will grow as with like a little seed at the beginning, and they will grow into lifelong habits, is through at least 4 evidence-based practices. One is implementation of intentions. We can plan, it's an if-then situation. When I go to the fridge, I will reach, if I go to the fridge, I open the fridge, I will reach for the salad instead of something else. If I put my running shoes on at 10 o'clock in the morning, I will then go exercising. Implementation intentions, we envision a plan and greatly helps a plan that is detailed. We need to put a place, a time, and when that happens and something that is happening there, and we will do something. It has been shown to be very effective for some behaviors such as flu shot behavior and voting behaviors. Another strategy when we begin creating our new habits is to do these habits in little bits. We want to start with a 2-minute rule. Every new important habit that we want our habit to stick for our lives has to begin, and we have to do it for at least 2 minutes. It has to begin and possibly finish within 2 minutes. When we do that, of course, after a while, we'll start to do more than that. But at the beginning, we just need to do it for 2 minutes. And when we do that, we want to never break the chain. We want to make so that when we do it, we are able to show up in the bad days. If we are able to show up in the bad days, that's more important to be the habit, the whole habit. Let's say we we have a habit of running 40 minutes a day. There's that day in which we would stay under our blankets and never come out of our blankets. It's important never to break the chain. So what we want to do is at least to get out of the blankets and at least put our running shoes on. And that's enough. If we show up in the bad days, it's better than showing up in the good days. Finally, we need to be able to reward ourselves in doing our new habit. And this rewarding, one of the best practices that it won't be immoral, illegal, or make you fat is by tracking. And the easiest form of tracking is through your calendar. You can simply put an X on each day in which you do your habit. And by seeing that consistently you're putting your X's on the calendar will give you the satisfaction to make it satisfying. And it will increase the probability that the habit will stick for your life. Now, I'm not advocating for the creation of any type of habit. So here I have a story which I adapted from this a short story called The Star Thrower. And it's a story about a beach. And during the night, the tide has washed ashore thousands and thousands of starfish. And now, as the water has retreated and the sun is coming up, the sun has a lot of heat, and it's going to dry up these starfish and kill them all. On the beach, there's a small child, and what he's doing is bending down, picking up a starfish and throwing it in water. And he begins again with another one. He bends down, picks up the other starfish and throws it in the water, and so on and so forth. Other bigger children, older children, mock him. They see what he's doing and they start mocking him. And they say, "What are you doing? All of this is useless. You will never be able to save them all. And you are stupid if you're trying to save them all." And the small child is sad. He knows he cannot save them all. But then he has an intuition. He picks up one starfish, he puts it in front of his face, and he said, "Yes, I cannot save them all, but this one will live." And he throws it in the water. So what we do, whatever it is, even if the smallest thing, what we do, we want to do something that matters in our lives. When our habits are something automatic and they help us do something that matters to us, make our lives meaningful, then habits become something more. They become a practice. To sum it up, on the path of doing, we react in order to do something about the problems that come up in our lives by behaving in such a way that is consistent with what is truly important to us. Such a behavior is, if repeated over and over again, becomes a practice for a steady and continuous self-improvement. Now let's go to the path of doing nothing. Now, the path of doing is a path of using our bodies, our muscles, is a path of unawareness. Habits thrive when we are unaware. because we are occupied doing something more important. In fact, if we try to bring awareness in our habits, we'll have a loss of performance. Try asking someone who's very good at playing tennis to tell you how it is that they are so good at playing tennis, and most probably they will lose performance. Try asking a writer, an accomplished writer, to tell you how it is that he writes so well, and he probably will hit the writer's block. So what's implicit in habits must not become aware. So the path of doing is a path of unawareness. The less we do, the more we become aware. The more we do nothing, the more we are. The more we are, the more we wake up to what is truly out there. And what is truly out there is our present, our reality. It's the moment, and it's in this moment that basically all our lives are played out. To say it like Alan Watson said, I have realized that the past and the future are real illusions, that they exist in the present, which is what there is and all there is. So what am I talking about the path of doing nothing? I'm talking about relaxation. Now, relaxation, it's something pretty boring to talk about. It's something you can get to yoga teacher or trainer, with all respect for yoga teachers and trainers, but it's something pretty common to do. What I'm talking about for relaxation is a reduction in the activity in the whole voluntary muscles in the body. One thing to take away is that people overestimate consistently their ability to relax. If I ask someone to relax deeply, to do nothing, and I ask you also to appreciate the outrageous nature of what I'm asking you to do. Most of our lives, we have been oriented towards doing something, towards like, just don't stand there, do something type of impulse. Now I'm asking you to do something like, just don't do something, stand there type of impulse. And while in doing, we react to impulses, we react to triggers that activate our habits. In the path of doing nothing, we respond. It's doing less and doing nothing type of behavior. And when people, if I ask someone to relax very deeply, and after, let's say, 3/4 an hour, I come back and I measure. They tell me, okay, I'm completely and utterly relaxed. I was never so relaxed in my life. If I put electrodes in their muscle tissue, I will find residual tension in their muscles. Therefore, the subjective feeling of being relaxed is not the same thing as being relaxed completely and utterly. If I think, and I think verbally, the muscles of my vocal cords will activate. A small current will pass through the vocal cords. If I see something with my eye, with my mind's eye, the muscles of my eyes will activate. If people that are trained to completely and utterly relax their throats experience an emptying of the mind, a silence of the mind. People that are trained and train themselves to reduce and relax utterly and completely the muscles in their eyes had the experience of sleeping without actually sleeping. Now, the benefits of relaxation are threefold. One of these benefits, and is the least beneficial thing, is general relaxation. We relax, we do our exercises, we do meditation, and we become familiar to relaxation. Problem is that when the drama of our lives, when adversity starts knocking at our door, probably everything we learned goes out of the window. Occasionally, if we do this long enough, we may have associated, linked a cue word or a certain type of breathing to relaxation. So occasionally, we may be able to link some adversity to a relaxed stance. But a serious advantage of relaxation is through being able to prevent and to prepare for adversity. We know that adversity is coming, and we can prepare to be utterly relaxed in the face of the storm. When we are in the eye of the storm, we can feel utterly confident in ourselves, utterly relaxed, utterly able to decide without being rushed, without enacting our habits, probably not the best habits we have. We are able to respond rather than to react. When we slow down with our bodies, our minds look basically like a mumble jumble of images, thoughts, or memories, judgments of any kind. It's really like everything is coming crashing down together against us. Some authors talk about our minds when we stop as like the mind of a monkey that jumps from a bush to another looking for the next banana. We need to stop our bodies first, and then our minds will follow. And they will follow eventually, and they will become isles of tranquility and serenity. How do you get to do nothing? Now, doing nothing is not something you can actually do. You can only evoke the sense of being, in the present, the attunement we have with the present. And there are various techniques, mostly come around tension control and what is called the relaxation response. I will demonstrate some of this at the end of this lecture when we'll do, for whoever wants, we'll do the hypno meditation. Another way to attune ourselves to the present is to do nothing, is to do eye focalization, defocalization exercises. We can focalize on an object and then while continuing to keep our attention on the object, broaden our attention to the objects near it, then broaden it once more, broaden it again, and again and again until we become aware of all there is in our fields of vision. When we do that, when we become aware of all there is in our field of vision, something happens. There's a slowing down of our bodies and our minds. A third exercise we can use to do nothing, to attune ourselves to the present, are mindfulness exercises. Without getting into a formal meditation, we can simply question ourselves. We can stop and ask ourselves 3 questions. One question is, what is the nature of the present moment? What is the nature of the present moment? What is the quality? Second question. What is the quality of the present moment? And third question is, am I aware? Am I aware right now? Ask yourself these questions for a second and notice what happens to your minds and your bodies as you do so. Notice the moment of silence that follows the questions. That silence, that peace is the path of doing nothing. So to sum it up, on the path of doing nothing, we respond by stepping back from our immediate experience and letting go of any tension in our bodies. We may then realize we are part of a larger, complex, vibrant and ever-changing story in which we can simply be without focus or aim to change anything at all. Now we get to the path of knowing. On the path of knowing, it's a path of reflection. It's a compass that orientates us in uncharted waters. When the storm comes, when adversity knocks our door, we are drawn into uncharted waters. And the path of knowing allows us to know in which direction we want to go to. In the words of the Dalai Lama, that sums up pretty well the path of knowing as reflection in a practice, as I'm trying to advocate here for a practice in reflecting. He says, there is a developmental process for cultivating compassion for others. Now he talks about compassion, but we can think of any positive quality that is meaningful to us. The first step is knowledge. Then you need to constantly reflect and internalize the knowledge to the point where it will become a conviction. It becomes integrated into your state of mind. Then you get to a point where it becomes spontaneous. At the beginning, it is in our minds. Then it gets into our hearts. At the end, it enters our deepest soul, our inner core. We become that ideal. How and what should we reflect upon? As I said before, to make habits, our behavior, something meaningful, we need to know what that meaningful thing is. And to do that, there are 3 simple questions for us to do so. What is my life about? Who do I want to be? And am I living consistently with what my life is about and who I want to be? We don't need to reflect on these things constantly. We need to reflect on these things at least often, but not constantly. We don't want to reflection. If we reflect too much, we will see the details and not the whole picture. And in this sense, I have an old an old story that comes from the sutras. There's a village and there's an elephant, and there are many blind men around the elephant. And a blind man touches its tusks and says, well, the elephant is of course a spear. Another blind man touches its ears and says, well, the elephant is of course a fan. The other blind man says, you two must be bollocks. I'm touching the elephant and I know he's a wall. And they fight, one against the other, each one having a truth, but being blind to the whole elephant. So one thing to take away when we are in the path of knowing is that we don't have the whole picture. And that if we are only focused on the problem, we might miss the easy solution. Being on the path of reflection, of knowledge, is to remind ourselves constantly, remind ourselves of many things. One thing is that the path of imperfection is a path of beauty. Our perspective is one in possibly 7 billion perspectives. We can change our perspective. On the path of knowledge, we know that if we simply change the way we see things and we tilt our head to the left, an image can be completely different and a whole new world can come up. On the path, what I talked about now has been 3 paths for increasing our resilience. The path of doing, the path of doing nothing, and the path of knowledge. 3 paths, a single way. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions or our dispositions, because we can accommodate and adapt. The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacles to our acting. The impeding to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Let's use adversity as a teacher, as something that propels us towards what's most important to us, to the life we want it to be, to the person we want to be, to make our lives worthy of being lived. Thank you very much for listening.